Cornel West announced he was running for president on Monday, and today an article was published in The Nation by Joan Walsh, which the headline currently reads...
Joan Walsh, who was not a talented enough hack for even NBC. Even NBC would not keep her on the air.
No, they got rid of her. She wrote an article that is currently titled, Cornel West should not be running for president.
Yeah,
he doesn't see a third party playing a spoiler role to Democrats as bad, and that's inevitable. Now, before we get into this article, because we will, it's important to note that the original headline was not Cornel West should not be running for president. It was Cornel West has no business running for president, as I proved here. So this is where I ratioed them, folks. Your boy ratioed the nation. Me, with my 4,000 subscribers, ratioed a magazine with 1.2 million. So they put this piece out. Let's be clear. Running for president, Cornel West will only take votes from Biden and help elect a Republican. Here's the headline. Cornel West should not be running for president. I replied, your original headline said he had no business running. You changed it to look less like the condescending rich white liberal scumbags that you are. That currently has 553 likes to the nation's 372 likes on the original article. You know what that's called? That's called a ratio. Hey, Russell, well, you haven't done this yet. Why don't you get out that singing bowl for your co-host here? Give me a little celebratory
all right, I'll
here.
buy that.
You know, it's not every day you ratio an outlet with 1 million subs, but I did it.
No. I asked the young boys that I bought this from at the site of the Buddha's first preaching, under what circumstances can I use this singing bowl? And they specifically said
a ratio. Yeah, a ratio. It comes in handy during ratios. Exactly. There we go.
I'm even giving you the rim job.
Yeah. Got him. But yeah, no, have no business running for president. Right? But no, that makes us sound a little too condescending. So let's change it to say the more mild, well, he should not be running for president, right? So here it is. Joan Walsh. Cornel West should not be running for president. This is a great country. Anyone can run for president, but only Joe Biden should run for president. That sentence, I guess, got edited out. That said, Cornel West has no business running for president from the left, right, or center. Okay, so they kept the line in the copy. They just didn't put it in the headline. I guess it pissed too many people off. I loved early DSA leader Cornel West. I love the author of the 1993 book Race Matters, Cornel West. I loved Cornel West when he belonged to a pussy organization called the DSA, which doesn't allow clapping at their conferences. I also loved the identity politics version of Cornel West, which posed no real threat to power. Now that he's running third party, though, I don't know. My mind has changed. I loved everything about West until he... What? Until he threatened to disrupt the system, until he supported Ralph Nader against then Vice President Al Gore.
Until he did some shit.
In 2000. Right.
Until he did some shit beyond talking shit on Al Sharpton's show.
Exactly. I loved Cornel West until he put his money where his mouth was. Then, oh no, out of bounds. A lot of my political friends supported Ralph Nader back then, and a lot of them have since apologized. Even Michael Moore. The Iraqi people and the people of the entire globe are so much the worse since Gore, the climate change believer and war skeptic, was defeated by George W. Bush that year with an assist from the Supreme Court and Nader's Green Party. West never apologized. He didn't see a third party playing a spoiler role to Democrats as bad, obviously, since he's about to do it again. This part gets really infuriating, especially, look, for those who don't know who Joan Walsh is, okay, because here Joan Walsh starts opining on Cornel West's statements, which are somewhat racially charged against Barack Obama. Does this look like a woman who should be, passing judgment on that? This old white-haired white woman is about to start lecturing him about what he said about Barack Obama.
It's not their place except when it is.
Except when it is. Except when it's, in service of running interference for the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
All right. So in 2008, okay, he did support Barack Obama in 2008, but he turned on him fairly quickly. Yeah, he turned on him once he threw homeowners out of their homes. when he promised not, that he was going to be a champion of working people, which he did fairly early on. Yeah.
Apparently, he did not get the memo that you are not to side with the homeowners if you want to be treated well by the press.
Exactly. Making criticisms that went way beyond Obama's political decisions. Then he supported Jill Stein in 2016. More recently, West has gone off the deep end. He promoted his 2024 candidacy on the fringe People's Party line. Fringe. With an appearance, here we go, on former comedian Russell Brand's web show, now frequented by right-wingers. And weeks ago, he praised Florida's extremist governor, Ron DeSantis, in the Wall Street Journal for his revolutionary defense of the classics. All right, let's take a quick game break there to litigate this a little bit, because that caught my eye when it came out. So, yeah, go ahead. If you got that, we could pull that up.
All right, so DeSantis's revolutionary defense of the classics, promoting the Western canon shouldn't only be a Republican talking point. All right, so let me just explain what this whole thing is about. All right, so there is an alternative to the SAT test called the Classic Learning Test. Ron DeSantis has now made people eligible for scholarships by taking that as an alternative to the SAT. Now, up until now, I think it's mostly been Christian colleges that will accept that as a substitute for the SAT, but not because, from the research I did before the show, not because it's actually done with a Christian perspective. It actually, the reading list that the test is based on has very few people who are associated with Christianity. Thomas Aquinas is on there, but if you're focusing on the Western canon, fair enough. But Gandhi is in there as well. Aristotle, what you'd expect from something focused on the fruits of a classical education. So now Ron DeSantis, now that he's made it legitimate in Florida, that's probably going to spread to some other states. Now, I want to point out, and we put this link in the description, in about a year ago, Cornel West actually wrote a lengthier defense of the classics and a classical education in response to Howard University dismantling its classics department. And that is definitely worth a read. But given that this is what she's directly referencing, we'll take a look at this one instead. So this is, by the way, co-written by Jeremy Wayne Tate, who's the CEO of the Classical Learning Test, the company that offers that test. Governor Ron DeSantis just gave a welcome boost to the classical education movement. He signed legislation allowing high school students to qualify for Bright Future scholarships, a state fund for college education, by submitting scores from the Classic Learning Test instead of the SAT alone. This move will likely be portrayed wrongly as partisan and conservative, but the greatest works of civilization have always been about spurring, not preventing, radical change. They teach us about the revolutionary ideas of the past and help us better understand the present. The richest ideas of what it means to be human are those that have stood the test of time. That's one of the virtues of the classics. They are a means of considering what is true without invoking the blind partisanship that encourages thoughtless action. There is nothing we need more today than the cultivation of reason and understanding. That's why Mr. DeSantis's support of classic education has universal merit that transcends partisanship. Education based on values, logic, and discipline isn't Republican. It's timeless. So now, okay, you can agree with that or you cannot agree with it, but it is not some horrific right-wing screed. It is not aligning with DeSantis. I'm sure Cornel West in the next breath would slam DeSantis for other policies. But if you've paid any attention to Cornel West, he's not a hateful man. It's not part of his philosophy. He calls everyone brother and sister. He's very prepared to heap praise on you where it's due, and he'll also call you a, what did he call Obama? A black puppet of Wall Street.
Mascot of Wall Street, yeah.
So, he'll do that too. That's Cornel West. But
Yeah.
but
No,
but
sorry, go ahead.
you can already see the approach that they're taking, because when I was researching for this segment, I saw it on, of course, Joy Reid's blog. I saw it in an op-ed in the Washington Post. They're lining people up to do what Matt Taibbi calls throwing the ick on you, right? They're lining up, and how do they do that? You're a right winger, right? That's the worst thing you can be with these people, right? They're trying to rule Cornel West out of bounds before anyone stops to even listen to what he has to say.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, look, in terms of a defense of the classics, because that article came across my radar a few weeks ago, and I thought maybe we should cover it. A defense of the classics, that is actually, I believe, an important thing for the left to communicate to people. One of the reasons why people are hesitant to give the left any power is because people have it in their head that whatever, you know, economic gains may be in store for them, you know, through, you know, any sorts of social reforms are going to come alongside this cultural transformation that they're not comfortable with. And so for a left to communicate a reverence for the classics, right, is part of signaling that, no, actually, we're pro healthcare and we're pro Shakespeare. Like, we're not interested in upending everything that people think about their society or their culture or their traditions. We're simply here to make everyone's lives a little easier and a little better, right? And that's in it. That's something that communicates in ways that, you know, a lot of the left doesn't want to. And that's part of the reason why people are so hesitant to give the left any power, because they are afraid that they are going to intrude in ways that they are not welcome. Whereas a lot of these economic reforms, just look at the polling. They're all extremely popular.
Well, and this is why I like to do some culture war segments. And you know, some people on our channel will say, I don't care about this. And my answer is, you need to. You need to, because no one's going to listen to us on economics as long as they think we're with Joan Walsh, as long as they think we're with Joy Reid, as long as they think we're with these fucking people. They don't want to hear what we have to say about healthcare. We have got to, at the very least, make it clear we're not with them. Ideally, you want to crush this entire line of thought to the point that it's just not a presence in the public anymore, that no one thinks this is going to be imposed on them. We talked about this before the show. When you talk about the Western canon today, who is graduating with a degree in English literature without reading Baldwin, without reading Langston Hughes, without reading The Invisible Man, without reading Nora Zeal Hurston? Who is graduating with a degree in literature that is just dead white men? Who is graduating that way? So this is, in many ways, at this point, it's a solution in search of a problem. I don't think we were really teaching literature that way anymore. And Cornel West, in his more extended piece about Howard University in the Washington Post, he argues the answer is addition, not subtraction.
Right.
And you can't blame the entirety of Western culture for bad ideas, because there are good ideas there too. Right. You can't say it's only the bad ideas that define this entire cultural tradition. What was really interesting is he makes it very clear in his Howard University article that it's his tradition too, that it's our tradition. He makes a very strong case, arguing, he talks about how Frederick Douglass comforted himself and educated himself reading Cicero, reading Plato secretly when he was still a slave. And he argues that this is part of our African American culture as well. We should take it for ourselves. We should take what's good in it. And that is the way you bring people together. And I think the people who are arguing otherwise have a vested financial, reputational, and status interest in tearing people apart and claiming status in the process.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. All right, let's get back to this article. We'll skip down a little bit here. West tried to frame his opposition to Obama. She's talking about his remarks against Obama as a universalist defense of poor and working class people. They didn't get enough help from Obama's Wall Street adjacent administration, I admit. Oh, that's nice of you to admit that. But calling the president a black mascot of Wall Street oligarchs and a black puppet of corporate plutocrats was awful. Well, I'm sorry, no, it was not. First of all,
awful.
Is it your first of all, is it your place to say it was awful? Miss Joan Walsh? No, I don't think so. But secondly, it was not awful.
Are you speaking for black people, Joan?
Right. It was not awful. West went on to claim that Obama was afraid of free black men thanks to his white ancestry and Ivy League education. West was at Princeton then after stints at Harvard and Yale. Yeah, but West is not afraid of free black men. That's the difference.
That's the difference, yeah.
Right? West is not West was not a mascot of Wall Street, a puppet of corporate oligarchs. Right? Obama feels most comfortable with middle-class white and Jewish men who consider themselves very smart, very savvy, and very effective in getting what they want, West went on. Asked about that by the New York Times, West replied, "It's in no way an attempt to devalue white or Jewish brothers. It's an objective fact. In his administration, he's got a significant number of very smart white brothers and very smart Jewish brothers. You think that's unimportant?" As Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote at the time, political critiques about the size of the stimulus package, about drone attacks in Pakistan, about Obama not fighting hard enough for the public option are fair game. But I think calling someone a black mascot or a black puppet because they don't agree with you is much less so.
She got her black friend in there to back her up.
Yeah. If the thing you don't agree with them about are drone strikes, then that makes it a bit personal, does it not? It's not a simple civil disagreement we can have, right? About not fighting hard enough for a public option. What about keeping homeowners in their homes? None of that? Yeah, he spoke in a very charged way because it was a very emotionally charged moment. The country was in crisis. This guy ran on hope and change, which, according to the campaign books that have been written, Obama didn't want to run on those slogans. He thought they were silly. So the point is that you're not just dealing with a guy who has a good faith disagreement with you. You don't owe a politician, especially a president, the assumption of good faith. Cornel West was calling him out for being a fucking fake and a fucking liar because that's what Barack Obama was and still is to this day. And he had every right to speak to him in exactly that language. And good on him for doing it. He doesn't owe anyone any apology for that, much less Joan fucking Walsh. Okay.
Well, would Joan Walsh ever call Barack Obama going to desperate people and pretending to drink the water in Flint awful?
Right.
Would
exactly.
Would that be in print?
Oh, you shouldn't call them names over that. No, that's just awful. That's over the line. West and Nader then tried to launch a primary attack on Obama. Senator Bernie Sanders thought about it, wisely decided against it. There wasn't, and in my opinion, still isn't a Democratic Party constituency for the kind of left-wing policies or an attack on a black president they wanted to launch. So there's still not
She's
a Democratic
such a
Party.
fucking propagandist. Like the way that she uses language, not a president, a black president, right? What difference does that make?
What she's saying here is that the Democrats, that the Democratic base can't handle criticism of a black president. Right. What she's saying here is
yes.
Well, she's saying the Democratic base are weak and stupid.
Right.
That's what it means. If you can't handle criticism of a president who happens to be black, you're obviously not talking about criticizing a president because they're black, but if they can't handle criticizing a black president, or they are not susceptible to the kind of left-wing politics that he espouses, I would argue she is in agreement with me that Democratic voters are weak and dumb. But now West wants to challenge Joe Biden.
I don't know how many RFK stands we have left after him siding with a Jewish fanatic against Roger Waters. But for any who are left, this is who you would need to win over.
Right. You need to win over Joan Walsh. Well, this is the main point that I wanted to make here. We can say what we feel about Joan Walsh now because Cornel West is outside the Democratic Party. See, this is the main benefit of running outside the Democratic Party. In 2020, we couldn't talk about people like Joan Walsh the way we're talking about them now because we needed Joan Walsh's readership to vote for Bernie Sanders.
Right.
So we had to play nice because if you alienate the nation readers, you can't win the primary because they have outsized influence within the primary process. We're not interested in whoever's fucking dumb enough to read this article and absorb it as truth and as wisdom. We don't need them anymore. How liberating is that? Doesn't it feel good not to need these people's approval anymore?
That's it.
That's why you run outside the duopoly, because when you run outside the duopoly, you appeal to real people who may watch guys like Russell Brand or Joe Rogan or Bill Maher, who don't absorb this as religiously as the idiots who read this do. Now West wants to challenge Biden, who is indeed a white president, who nonetheless won the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020 thanks to overwhelming black support, which he will have again.
Any Democrat will get that.
Of course.
Any Democrat will get that. So what does that mean?
Okay, here we go.
People love Joe Biden.
This is where it gets even better. What does West bring to the race? A roster of legitimate complaints, but without any plan for achievable change. I'm running for truth and justice as a presidential candidate for the People's Party to reintroduce America to the best of itself, fighting to end poverty, mass incarceration, ending wars, and ecological collapse, guaranteeing housing, healthcare, education, and living wages for all. Then she has the gall to say, who could disagree? Well, let me tell you who would disagree. Joe Biden would disagree with just about all of that. Joe Biden created the carceral state, check. Joe Biden is agitating for World Wars III and IV, check. Joe Biden signed the Willow Project into existence, check. No action on health care, no action on education, no minimum wage. He let the Senate parliamentarian nix that. Housing, I don't know. Have we heard any public housing plans from Joe Biden? I have not heard anything about that.
I've never heard a word from him about housing.
It could all be the sort of idealistic word collage we get from Marianne Williamson. But in West's case, running as a third-party candidate poses a far more serious risk to Biden's re-election and the fate of the country. Just to be clear, he will only take votes away from Biden and help elect a Republican. Look at this writing here. It could all be the sort of idealistic word collage we get from Marianne, but in West's case, running as a third party poses a serious risk. This goes back to what we were saying when we talked about Crystal and Kyle. When you run as a nice, idealistic, hopeful progressive, this is a word collage to people like Joan Walsh. Yeah, it's a nice wish list of things that we all, in a perfect world, would be able to pass. Not because Joan Walsh needs it. She's rich. She doesn't need any of this. This is all abstract to her. But it's a nice word collage coming from a nice team player like Marianne. When a third-party candidate says it, it poses a risk. What's another word for risk? Threat. What have I been saying throughout this show? The way you pose a threat is to do what Cornel West is doing. Do you want to be a threat on Election Day, or do you want to not be a threat on Election Day? That's your choice. Marianne Williamson, not a threat. Not a threat. Okay? RFK, not going to end up being much of a threat. This is what poses a threat. Even if he were to run as a Democrat like Williamson and the deeply off Robert Kennedy, she doesn't even bother.
deeply off.
Deeply off. Just doesn't even bother elaborating on that at all.
Like she is such an epitome of an East Coast shitlib.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy doesn't get any. He doesn't get any explanation at all.
This is prose that only the ladies who lunch could love.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. That's what it's for. The ladies who lunch.
Deeply off RFK Jr. He would still hurt Biden because a primary gives the bored supine media a reason to hype Dems in disarray stories. Right, because the media is not in the tank for Joe Biden. That's a real problem.
The media is really working against you guys. And the Dems are not at all in disarray either.
No, right. Exactly.
You got a transportation secretary who couldn't run a bike path.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll skip down here. I don't want to bore the audience too much with some of that. West's campaign video featured an appearance on Bill Maher's Real Time. Unfortunately, Maher, who has also hosted me 3 times, has become an anti-woke, anti-Democrat crusader. Maybe that makes a coalition to West? To me, it makes an alliance of privileged yet strangely aggrieved men. Plus Russell Brand. And then here, to be fair, Nina Turner also supports West. She just, admits that a lot of her points are negated by that final one. But look at this. Maher is becoming an anti-Democrat crusader. Maybe that makes a coalition to West. Well, yeah, maybe it does. You know why? Because he's not running as a Democrat, right? This is what these people cannot, for the life of them, get in their heads. Third-party voters hate Democrats. That's why they don't vote for them.
Since when is Bill Maher anti-Democrat? He's anti-woke. This fucking guy thought Amy Klobuchar was a good idea.
Yeah, he's also anti-left, but this guy wants Amy Klobuchar. Exactly. Senator Bernie Sanders has already endorsed Biden. West seems to be trolling right-wing venues for support. Criticize Biden all you want, but show me your political and electoral coalition alternative unless you want to turn the world back over to Trump or equally bad DeSantis. I'm sad that West wound up here. I'd like him to find a way out of this destructive political cul-de-sac. But I don't know what that would be, and until then, it's incumbent on everyone who knows his tragic political past to talk about it. Wow. What a smear job. What a job that was. And, look, I tweeted this out earlier, and I'll just, as a response to this, because they're already coming at you with the line that a vote for Cornel West is a vote for the GOP, right? It's a vote for Trump. It's a vote for DeSantis, right? It's the same thing they say every single time. Yep. Here's my advice to everybody, okay? Rather than try and, spin it and saying, well, it's Biden's job to earn my vote and I don't owe my vote to anybody. These are all defenses they've heard a million times. To me, the best way to combat that is to just say the following. If I vote for Cornel West, or in your case, if you vote Green, I'm not saying you got to vote for Cornel West. If you vote Green or you vote Libertarian or you write in somebody, if I vote for a third-party anti-duopoly alternative, I'm voting for that person because I hope that person wins. I'm hoping that they catch fire and win. But if they don't win and they take enough votes from Biden to throw the election to the GOP, I'm fine with that too. You have to just tell them, yeah, we are willing to ruin your Tuesday night in November of next year. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this to cause disruption, whatever that may be. We are fine with whatever outcome results from us voting third party. We do not care. We do not care. That's what you have to tell them. Because that, A, is, in my case, intellectually honest, is where I actually am coming from. But that scares them. That makes them panic because now they know. Now your cards are on the table. You're saying, yeah, I understand all your fretting and all your, neurotic bullshit. Republicans are going to win if you do this. You're saying, I don't care. I don't care what happens.
Right.
I'm voting for Cornel West because I think he'd be the best president. I understand there's a risk of tipping the scales to the GOP if I do that. That's a risk I'm perfectly willing to take. I don't care. And in my case, it's not tipping the scales to the GOP because if I didn't have Cornel West to vote for, I wouldn't vote at all. Right?
Well, that's the case with a lot of people who vote third party. They always make it as if those were guaranteed Democrat votes. And generally, if somebody's voting Green, they left the voting for Democrats exit way back on the highway. They're not voting Democrat anyway. If there were no Green Party candidate, they just wouldn't vote at all. But even so, yeah, you have to make it clear that you're willing to go kamikaze and burn down the entire system. Otherwise, what leverage do you have? If you're not willing to cross that Rubicon of, yeah, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if the Republican wins. I don't care. In a way, in an accelerationist spirit, probably be better anyway for my objectives.
Hey, if it's Biden Trump, I might buy that. If it's Biden DeSantis, I might buy that. If it's Biden Trump, I'm sorry, Biden might be the accelerationist in that equation. speak. He seriously might. I mean, I'm sorry.
Sure.
World War
Sure.
III lasting 10 years versus World War III ending in a few weeks,
Well,
which I believe
well,
Trump
well,
could
that-
actually do if he sat Zelensky down and say, listen, you're cut off. Work this shit out. Like, that's something he could actually, that's a promise he could actually deliver on, as opposed to like the wall or something, right?
Right.
In that reality, Biden might be the accelerationist, right?
Well, and then, you know, you explain to people, well, working people's wages have not gone up in 50 years. So in the end, I'm not an elite. What do I get out of it being a Democrat instead of a Republican? You tell me. What has Joe Biden done for me? What did I get out of Joe Biden being president? I wouldn't have gotten out of Donald Trump being president. Either way, it's pretty much nothing for the average person.
Please clap.